Hey everyone, welcome to the Get Your Life Together Girl podcast, the ultimate blueprint to self-love and inner peace. I'm your host, Danielle Van. As a cognitive behavioral therapist, life coach to women, meditation teacher, and author, I've spent my life studying and learning from the stories that make us human. It's my passion and goal to help you shift your mindset and create a lifelong revolution to help you reach your greatest potential. True self-love and inner peace is only possible when we have the ability to see ourselves and own our experiences without deep diving into a spiral of negativity, self-doubt, and emotional dysregulation. After all, self-validation is the ability to accept our internal experiences, thoughts, and feelings. As we continue our building series through the end of the year, last week we started with loneliness, and today we're taking a one-on-one deep dive into self-validation. Being unable to validate our emotions, thoughts, and feelings keeps us from living an emotionally stable life. It holds us in a state of perceived unworthiness, and it keeps us from our emotional best. This week we're breaking down and trashing the barriers that keeps us from validating ourselves, emotions, and our thoughts. The Get Your Life Together Girl podcast starts right now. Okay, week 2 of this series where we're leaning into and addressing the things, the feelings, the thoughts, the experiences that so greatly hold us back and often cause us to utter those nasty little words, those insanely untrue words of, I'm broken, I don't know how to love myself, and a million other sentences that sound somewhat like that, right? They have the same meaning. The truth is, we all need validation, all of us. And when we don't have it, whether through ourselves or from others, guess what? Those are the statements we often use. There's not a single person in this world, regardless of what they say, that doesn't need some form of validation. We're wired this way. Validation gives us an understanding of what works for us. It shows us what feels good to us, what's right, what's emotionally sound. It even tells us what kind of person we are and the relationship that we have with ourselves. This is important, right? This is why validation is so important to each of us. The problem is that most of us were never taught how to validate ourselves. We are so often taught that golden rule, be kind to others, do unto others as you would like done unto you. But we are not taught how to turn that inward. We know how to help others justify their feelings, reflect on their values. We even know how to uplift when needed. But that same education, again, it's pushed under the rug when we're asked to do it for ourselves. This is one reason why so many people seek others for their validation. We look to others to validate us because we don't know how to do it for ourselves. This is really one small reason why so many of us have such trouble taking compliments, right? We don't have an ability to self-validate. That's really just one small reason. Of course, we have trauma, limiting beliefs, unfulfilled needs, childhood things. There's a list that goes to our validation seeking. But let's break down what self-validation is. There are actually 6 levels of self-validation. I'm going to walk you through those in just a bit. We're going to talk about why self-validation is important, the steps to get there, and then I want to give you a few affirmations, or if you prefer to call them positive focus statements, you could do that, to use and really have on hand when you need that validation boost. We really want you to get into a state where you are seeking how you feel first, what your opinion is, before going outward. And that's where those statements will really come into play. But first, you know me, let's have a good definition so we're all on the same page, right? So self-validation is the ability to accept our internal experience, our thoughts, and our feelings. Now, it's important to say that self-validation does not mean on any level that you will believe every thought that you have, or that you will validate or feel that every feeling that you have is justified. All this really means is that you have the tools and the ability to recognize, accept, and honor what's happening within you. And we want to get to a place where we do so without judgment or criticism. That's a big jump for a lot of people. It is possible. We don't have to go there, the first time that we're practicing this, but that is the end goal. And I'm not going to lie to you, right? It is a complex process. Just like I said, that's the end goal. And it can be messy. It can be trying. It can get to the point where you feel like you can't focus anymore on it. And if you do, you're going to bang your head against the wall, right? It's okay, I promise, because this is complicated and you will mess it up. I still mess this up from time to time, and it's totally okay. Remember, in anything we do, what we're trying to seek is progress over perfection. Perfection doesn't exist. We just want to progress in our lives. That's it. And as we walk through this conversation, I cannot impress upon you enough how important it is to self-validate. While it may feel difficult, like I just said, with enough practice and maybe listening to this episode a few times to extract all the nuggets I'm laying down, in no time, you really will be self-validating with ease. Again, practice, progress. That's where we want to be. Now, before we dive into the steps, let's talk about the difference between internal self-validation and external self-validation. It's really important to know the difference. So internal validation is, again, this process of certifying your feelings from your particular point of view, not from anyone else's, but from yours and yours alone. This is where we accomplish self-validation. External validation means this process of stating one's feelings and really showing up in a certain way so that your actions can be validated or even judged by someone else. It's really not a bad thing that you're doing that, because a lot of times that helps us develop positive self-regard. The problem comes when that is what you are continually doing. There is no internal validation, because the more you reach for external validation and don't receive it, the worse it is going to be on your mental health, on your emotional health, or even your physical health. It's here that we really see a vicious cycle. It develops where we're not good enough no matter what you do or how you show up. We get into all of those limiting beliefs and we really struggle. And we all know when we are in a cycle of not feeling good, it is extremely hard to get out of it. And when the only way that we can feel better is to rely on an outside source to feed our worth, we're setting ourselves up for disaster. So how does someone who has a grip on their self-validation show up, right? That's important to talk about real quick. And of course, there's lots of qualities that are present, but let's talk about a few fundamental ones. A self-validated person is confident. And I don't mean a false sense of confidence. I mean really confident. They know what they're capable of. They feel good in their skin. They know that they are here for a purpose and a reason, and they are owning that, even if they don't know what that purpose is. That's so important, right? That is confidence. They can deal with life's problems without needing someone else to tell them how to show up. Now, I need to clarify that statement, okay? I want you to really pay attention real quick. Even the most self-validating person needs or can benefit from a shoulder or an expert to lean on. So if you're currently in therapy, or you did therapy in the past, or you're contemplating therapy or coaching of any kind, that does not mean that you are not a self-validator. It just means that you know yourself well enough that you know you need extra support. That doesn't mean you can't self-validate. Got it? I just want you to know that. Because really the whole point of therapy or coaching is to teach you the tools to do these things for yourself. We're not telling you how to live your life. We're telling you to get it together, right? Okay, now let's go to the next qualities. You know your inner voice and you validate it. You do not typically lean into heavy self-criticism and realize that other people's criticism of you is generally about them, right? It's about their thoughts, feelings, and actions. A self-validated person often manages complex emotions far better than other people. They accept and love themselves as they are, and that gives them a sense of self-dignity. These people can love their thoughts and emotions as is without needing to address or fix every single thing that comes into their awareness. So important. They see this deep witnessing of themselves as a way to identify what they need to work on. They see their thoughts and emotions as an opportunity. That's how I see mine, right? I own my humanness, but I also know that I am going to mess up, but I can love myself because that gives me a sense of self-dignity. So important to hear that. We all need self-dignity. How is that developed? Self-validation. And to go a step further, self-validators respond positively towards their emotions and behaviors, even the hard ones. They ask an excellent question that we all should be asking ourselves, and it is, what are you trying to teach me? Now, let's talk quickly about the relationship between self-validation and self-worth before I hand over the 6 levels or layers of validation. So I'm going to throw out a few statements that I often hear in session or in DMs that really help me quickly identify that not only does this person not have self-validation in practice, but they also struggle with self-worth. So if you hear these statements and you identify with them, we really need to move through this. We really need to clean these things up so that we can become a self-validator. So here they are. I'm not good enough. I'm broken. I always fail. I am stupid. I am a loser. Nothing ever works out for me. I hate my life. If these statements pulse through your head, fire up your emotions, and then spill out of your mouth quite often, we have to really look at the fact that there is no way to connect with ourselves and feel worthiness until we clean that up. For self-validation to occur, you must feel worthy, and you have to be confident in the 5 pillars of our lives that I talk about ad nauseum. Right? So mentally, spiritually, physically, financially, and emotionally. When you develop a sense of your value and how you are as an individual, guess what? You level up in your confidence. You level up in your value place. Worthiness and self-validation go hand in hand. So let's talk about those 6 levels of validation before we get into how to do it. So level 1, be present. I talk so often about being present, but I don't believe that the concept actually lands for many. So let me get a little bit, more elementary with it, right? So to be present means to ground yourself, to not disassociate, to not suppress or numb your thoughts or your feelings. It's being present and allowing yourself to know I am where I am and I'm here right now. Right here, right now. It's allowing yourself and giving yourself permission to sit in the darkness if you need to, right? It's listening to yourself. It's not only knowing what your emotions are at the time, but it's being so radically aware that you understand what is happening with you on the scope of time. What's happening all the time? What is happening within me right now? It's giving yourself validation that no matter the thoughts, the feelings, or the actions, that you have the strength and ability to move through it. That's level 1 of self-validation. It's so important. Level 2 is acute reflection. For self-validation, acute reflection comes in when you acknowledge your internal state and label it accurately. Right? So we know that perhaps we're triggered by an emotion and we have the ability to reflect on the way that that emotion is feeling within us and name it. A lot of times we will have moments and how we feel gets stuck right? Like, oh, my stomach is upset or I have a headache. That is where you're feeling the moment. So many people do not put that together. This is energy coming in. And if you don't expel the energy, guess what? It's going to stay. So when you are accurately reflecting, you can observe, describe, and really get into a place where you know the experience and you're able to label it. So accurately reflecting would sound like, I feel angry because my day did not go as planned, and my shoulders are tight and I'm just not feeling my best. Guessing, right? So guessing what you're feeling sounds like, I'm a total loser because my day fell apart and I'm sick of living this way. Nothing ever goes right, right? So that's not being able to validate what's really happening. Are either of these statements true? Yeah, the first one is, right? It didn't go the way that I wanted to, and I don't feel my best because of it. Being able to interpret your experience in a truth-based way allows validation. The next one is something I just mentioned, and that's guessing. So level 3 is guessing. Guessing actually does help us if we use it in the right way. So we can actually self-validate by asking ourselves questions, right? You hear me talk about this so often about getting down to just the facts. We're using that here too. If we go back to our last statement of, I'm a total loser because my day fell apart, we could ask, am I sad because my day didn't go as wanted? No, that's not sadness. Okay, what is it? Am I mad? Yeah, I'm mad, but it's worse than that. Okay, are you angry? Yeah, I am, and I'm kind of hurt. Whatever it is that you're feeling, you're able to get down to what it is if you just question it, guess your way until you feel like you've landed on the right thing. You're really looking for the truth. And when you find it, you can validate yourself in those feelings and then move through them. Now, let's quickly get through the rest of these 3 levels so that we can get into the action of self-validation. So the next one up is validating through our history. I actually believe this is the method of self-validation that most of us use, a large majority of the time, and we don't even realize it. So it's here that we look at our thoughts, our feelings, and our experiences, and we use the outcome of something in the past to dictate our level of comfort or discomfort, or even the attention that we're going to give, or an understanding that we're going to give to the moment based on what happened before. I call this looking for the evidence, right? We have the ability to look at the past. Does that mean it's always going to be the same experience now? Of course not. But it can provide us with some level of understanding about what we're feeling and maybe give us some clues as to how to validate ourselves, the moment, and our feelings. It is a good way to, kind of get down to what it is that you need to be addressing. So level 5 is normalizing. Normalizing is extremely interesting to me because it's really twofold, and it's very easy to spot when you know what you're looking for. And if this is you, it's okay, right? We're working on self-validation. So one part of it is that for many people who have very intense emotions, they are easily dysregulated. They struggle all the time. They're constantly leaning into someone else to validate their feelings. Are we good? Do you still love me? Are we okay? They tend to not see any of their emotional reactions as normal, and they don't find them to be justifiable. So they beat themselves up when they come out of this loop of negativity. They call themselves names. They really trash their worth and their ability to validate themselves. Remember how I said it's twofold. We can get into that place where we're like, I am the lone wolf out here that feels this way. And we also can get into a spot that we say everyone has emotions, right? No one can be happy 100% of the time. We have an ebb and flow to our lives. It is normal to feel. If you do not feel, there's a problem, okay? It doesn't mean that your emotions are bad or good. It just means your emotions are yours. It's important to validate yourself when your emotions hit. It's okay to say, I feel angry. It's okay to look at a situation and say, is this an appropriate response to the moment? Is anger the appropriate response? Yes, it is. All right, that's self-validation. We often want to compare our feelings to others to see how we are justified in what we are doing, right? Again, that's another way for external validation. Listen, everyone's feelings and emotions are different. If you are feeling it, it's normal to you. Remember what I said in the very beginning. Just because you feel it doesn't mean that you think it is right. It just means that it is there. If you can validate that, you're one step further in your process to full self-validation. It's happening within you now. What do you need to do with it? The next level and the last level is radical genuineness. In terms of self-validation, this means that you are your real self, that you're not lying to yourself or others, that you have taken off the mask and you have accepted who you are. It means that you don't pretend to be something that you are not. If you take absolutely nothing away from this conversation, and of course I want you to, but if there's nothing else, I want you to remember that rejecting who you are is one of the highest forms of invalidation. Let me say that again. Rejecting who you are is one of the highest forms of self-invalidation. So are you really being who you truly are? If you are, self-validating is so much easier. So let's deep dive a little bit further. How does someone self-validate beyond what we just talked about, right? We all know that we have to work on ourselves to feel positive about ourselves. The process of self-validation starts with a thorough understanding of ourselves. We all need that. We all have to get there. So how can we do that? How can we self-validate? The first step is to become consciously aware of your inner world. What's going on in your mind? What are you feeling? What behaviors and actions are you making? You have to become aware of all of these things. You may have heard me in other episodes talk about how I ask the women that I work with to walk around with a notebook for a set amount of time and write down their feelings and thoughts every time a negative thought comes up. This is a great way to get to know what's happening within you. A lot of times we do not understand that we are in this cycle of negativity until we see it on paper and then we're shocked. It is a really good way to get to know what's going on. It helps us understand what we're thinking and how we're feeling. So once we do that, we really want to give ourselves permission to understand that self-validating takes time and it is a practice. And that means that we have to be consciously committing to ourselves. The only way, and I mean the only way, to move through anything is to move through it. The only way to learn is to engage. Accept that it's going to take time and effort when it comes to self-validation. If you spent years beating yourself up, it's going to take more than a minute to take that away. So give yourself time. Give yourself validation. And by doing that, we lean into self-compassion. So important. How do we do that? We work to release the inner critic. This is so hard, y'all. I'm not even going to lie to you. It is damn hard at times. And even I can spark that inner mean girl from time to time and feel the lack of worth and my thoughts trying to convince me that I am not enough. We all have that, right? So we have to lean into self-compassion. It's our job to witness and offer ourselves the ability to say, you know what? I'm feeling something. I know I need to move through it right now, and I'm going to do so gently. There's nothing wrong with being gentle with yourself. If you wouldn't say to someone, you know what, you just need to get over it. If you wouldn't look at your child and say, stand up, you're fine, when they're bleeding profusely, you don't have to do that to yourself. Self-compassion in all ways. Be kind to yourself. Understand that validating yourself requires you to have an action of kindness within you. It's the only way that this works. And remember how we just talked about your emotions being normal? This is the next step. When we have kindness in place, when we understand what's happening, when we have shut down that inner mean girl, we can now step into the emotions. We can look at our emotions. We can look at the situation that led the emotional response within our body and ask ourselves, what am I supposed to learn from this feeling right now? What am I supposed to do with this? And you can meet it with kindness. You can meet it with an understanding that my emotions are normal and I'm experiencing them because I am meant to learn something from them. So important. And whether you realize it or not, this is validating yourself. And once you learn to do that, when that is in practice, practice self-love. Remember at the beginning, I said we cannot fully love ourselves without validation, but what we can do is practice self-love until it's fully developed, until we learn to validate it within ourselves. It feels good when you are praised and you affirm your feelings. You have to get into a practice that you love yourself, that you look at yourself in the mirror and say, I love you, girl. You really have the ability to do whatever the hell you want to. I'm proud of you. You are not broken. You are strong. You are validated in my eyes because you are amazing. That is self-love. You can do it. You can affirm your feelings. You can take care of yourself. You do not need someone else to do that for you. Is it nice when they do it? Sure. But do you have to have someone do it? No. That's your job. In doing so, you have so much freedom to accept and validate yourself and your feelings, right? When you love yourself, you build confidence. So when you lean in, you say, I am good enough as I am. That's self-validation. Next, we have to celebrate our achievements, and we can even create a failures list. I know that sounds really counterintuitive, but it's not, I promise. I promise it's not. However, when we fail and we look to the lessons, guess what? We build our resiliency. We really lean in and build resiliency from our moments because that's where our strength is developed. And that leads to validation. So write down those failures. And when you have your list, I want you to go back and write down next to the failure what you learned from it. This is an active self-validation exercise. The next thing that we're going to work on is self-forgiveness. When we are self-validating, we have to get out of judgment. And we have to get out of the mindset of I should have, or I wish I wouldn't have, or I wish I would have. We have to forgive. We have to remember we are the people that moment needed in order for us to get the lesson, for us to understand and to learn, right? We are who we are at that moment because that is who that moment needed us to be. We have to be able to see ourselves as humans, as flawed humans that come and they learn. We all make mistakes, and being harsh with yourself will never change the fact of the mistake. Never. What will change the fact of the mistake is to lean in, extract the lesson, not be overly critical, not be over judgmental, but learn from them. And when you commit to learn from your mistakes, you develop confidence and worth. Moreover, you do not have to be harsh on yourself to try to fit into a frame made by others. I should have gone to school. Well, that's somebody else's wish. That's somebody else's desire. That will not validate you if that's not your dream and purpose. I should have been gentler with that person. They were really frail and I just didn't have time. Okay, now you know that you want to show up for others. Whatever it is, be who you are and treat yourself with love and respect. No one is perfect. No one is infallible. We all have to accept that fault is a part of our being. From there, we have to work to fulfill our own needs. Self-validation is, and I do mean is, improved by fulfilling your own needs. It comes back to those questions that I ask so often. What do I want? What do I need? How do I want to feel? How will I get there? When you know, you're able to meet yourself and your needs. More so, you have to be willing to be open to the answer to those questions. A lot of times in private session, I'll ask, what do you want? And someone will tell me and I'll say, okay, but what do you need? And those two have a big gap between them. And when I ask, how do they want to feel? It's generally somewhere in the need versus the want. And so what do you need? What do you want? You have to get into a place that you are willing to fulfill your own needs and wants. Because when we don't, guess what happens? We often have doubts about ourselves. And doubt will never make you feel validated. It will always make us say those words that are stupid, broken, weak, incompetent. Ask yourself the 4 questions and then fulfill your own needs. And make sure that you always go back to that last question and develop a plan to get there. How will I get to what I need and want? Lastly, I want you to focus on those affirmations or those focus statements that I mentioned in the very beginning. I told you that I was going to give you a few to focus on, but I want you to change them. Mold them into whatever you wish them to be, just so that they are positive, they're a true reflection of you, and they actually have validation within them. So here we go. It's normal for me to feel this way. My feelings are valid. I am proud of myself. This is hard, but I am capable. I am worthy. I am more than my work, my titles, or my accomplishments. My self-worth is not based on other people's thoughts or ideas of who I am. I like myself. I trust myself. Those are just a few great validation focus statements that you can change and make your own. Now, if you're someone who already is great at self-validation, but you really want to go up a level, I want to give you a few things to look at, to improve on, to maybe find out where you are in this process. So if that is you, I want you to lean in and I want you to ask yourself, am I judging myself? And if I am, how can I judge myself less? Because the more that you do not judge yourself, the higher your confidence level, right? And then I want you to try to feel love from yourself. Feel valued and secure within yourself without seeking it outward first. So how can I do that? What can I do to make myself feel much more love and value? And then look at your self-blame. Is it fully active, right? A lot of times we are good at self-validating, but we blame ourselves when things don't go exactly as we want them to, or we don't feel the way we want to, or we have a negative thought. I'm slipping backwards. That's often something I hear. It's not. But self-blame leads to self-worth being destroyed. So can you recognize if that is happening and can you step out of it? Because all of us have goodness that lies within us. So what are we engaging with, right? So that's a good focus. And then I don't want you to tell yourself how you should feel or question why you feel the way that you feel. Just feel. Remember, we all have emotions. It's normal. Allow it, right? And I want you to practice doing self-talk. You can do this if you're just starting self-validation as well. But if you're on that next level, this is a really good thing to bring in. And I want you to really find a quiet time, whether you're writing or you're looking in the mirror, and talk to yourself. Tell yourself all those things that I said before. You are confident. You are happy. You are beautiful. I'm proud of you. Talk to that inner girl and tell her that she is worthy. That's validation. Again, self-validation is not easy. And it is something that takes practice. It is a developed skill. But you know what? You are beyond worthy of that time and energy. When it comes to feeling good enough, when it comes to validating your enoughness, I want you to ask, am I willing to show up for myself? Am I willing to show up to my life? Am I willing to try my best regardless of an unknown outcome? Do I care about myself enough to tell myself I am good enough, I am worthy enough, and to not lean into this lie of brokenness? You're not broken. You never have been. Situations may come in that are hard, but you're not broken. Can you validate that? Can you own that you are not broken, that you are enough, and that your life has been given to you so that you can create something amazing? Learn to love yourself and respect who you are, because who she is absolutely amazing. And besides, doing that is an essential step to getting your life together, girl. Thank you so much for listening to the Get Your Life Together Girl podcast. If you've enjoyed these tips and tools for bettering your life and are seeking daily inspiration and additional tools and tips, you can follow me on social media at Get Your Life Together Girl on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. You can also visit the show notes on my website, getyourlifetogethergirl.com. While you're there, check out the Women's Circle. There's already 100 downloadable tools and practices available to you right now. Plus, we meet monthly over Zoom, and it's only $9 a month. Until next time, be kind to yourself and others.